I stopped expecting my parents to be my parents when I realized they're wounded children trapped inside grown bodies. How can I expect them to take care of me when they can't take care of themselves? Hey loves! Welcome back to the Aphrodite podcast, where I help you become unapologetically your authentic self. If you're new here, hello, I'm your host Diana. If you like the video, feel free to leave a comment or a like to let me know what you think. So for today's video, as you see from the title, I'll be discussing toxic family dynamics. And I just want to apologize, my camera was acting a bit weird, so if you see a pink screen, that is what's going on, but I'll promise to do better in the next video. So enjoy. In today's video, as you can see from the title below, we are going to be talking about toxic family dynamics. I first want to start off by saying, you can tell if a blessing is sent from God if you don't have to exchange your mental health in order to receive it. So a lot of us will continue to try to mend a situation or try to fix something, and what God is trying to tell you is to move on and to let go. Because it's our family, a lot of us don't want to let it go because then we feel like we're in a lack. But the reality is, you have to look at it from what is it that you're really gaining. Maybe God is trying to tell you that you have to let this thing go because it's only pushing you further away from your highest self. So it's definitely not a blessing if there is a lot of mental health exchange that you have to do. I read this quote from a book called Fragile Feelings by Iris Rose, and it stated, "I stopped expecting my parents to be my parents when I realized they're wounded children trapped inside grown bodies. How can I expect them to take care of me when they can't take care of themselves?" If you want to know if this video is for you or if you should continue watching, if you heard any of these 10 invalidating statements, then there's a chance that you've been exposed to toxic people and you have some reflection to do. So the 10 invalidating phrases are: number 1, you're imagining things. Number 2, I don't see what's the problem. The thing is with that one is the person refuses to listen to understand what the person is saying. They keep interrupting, saying, I don't see what the problem is. They don't listen to understand, they listen to defend. Number 3, why are you ruining a good day? Number 4, that sounds like a you problem. Number 5, you're so sensitive. Number 6, your feelings aren't my problem. You would hope that the person would care how their words impact you. So the fact that they don't shows a big lack of self-development. Number 7, you're making a big deal out of nothing. Number 8, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Are they really sorry though? Number 9, I was just kidding. Can't you take a joke? Obviously it wasn't funny, so. Number 10, why can't you just get over it? And if they tag on the end of that statement, it's in the past, that's also a good one. So for the main part of this video, I'm going to be discussing Patrick Teahan, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, his 7 types of toxic family systems. He is a psychologist that works with childhood trauma. I will link down his video below if you want to get a more in-depth and detailed video. But I feel like getting the perspective of a person who's been through it and isn't a profession and more like you're talking to a best friend, I think that's my take on the video that I'm going to give. Number 1, looks good on paper. These are families with a very controlling image and they avoid feelings. There's a lot of shame, guilt, and problems with either their kids or their marriage. More energy goes into covering up those feelings than addressing it. There's a lack of authenticity that the outsiders won't see because keeping up a perfect image is more important. Values to this type of family dynamic is usually based on accomplishments. What you achieve equals to your relevance or importance in the family. So if you choose to do something outside of what they see fit, you are beneath them. Your feelings don't matter. You are not important. Nothing you do is addressed. You're just like a fly on the wall. They view problems as weakness, and the parents usually in this dynamic want to be seen as contributing members of society, that they do good, they are well put together, nothing is wrong with them on the outside. A lot of this can be seen in people who consider themselves good church people, but they actually have a second-hand relationship with God, and I will be talking about what second-hand relationship with God is in my next video. But basically, in short terms, is people who say and do things that are religious, but they're doing it because their partner is the pastor, or kids that just go to church because their parents make them go to church. People that do good things like donating or any good deeds just for the sake of having good points with God, and not actually doing it for just being good. These kids will struggle with identity issues and authenticity because they were shunned from being themselves, so they don't know who they are. Number 2, every man for themselves. In this family dynamic, no one knows how to connect. It's mostly like playing house, but it lacks connections between the kids or even between the parents. A lot of the time, work is seen as more important than their own interests, or maybe their friends and their personal interests are more important than their kids. So what I mean by this is parents who don't show up to their kids' extracurricular stuff like sports or debate or anything that the kids may show interest into. Maybe they don't even support it, like they don't fund it. Kids have to find a way to fund their own lives, basically. So sometimes the kids may feel like, this person doesn't even want to like get to know me, so what's the point of sharing anything? I'm just going to stay quiet, or I'm going to put myself in my room or keep myself so busy so I'm out of the house. Most they may ask is, how is your day? But some people don't even ask that. It's just, get to the chores, get to doing your homework, leave me be, like go to your space of the house and leave me alone. Even if they don't say that directly, their actions definitely portray that. It could also be not investing in your kids emotionally, not caring about how they feel or what's going on between their relationships with their friends, or just having no interest in what your kid may feel at all. The kids may end up being raised by other people, so that could be grandparents or aunts, uncles, or even sometimes friends' parents. Number 3, the anti-love dynamic. So in this, there is a total deficit of affection, appreciation, warmth. In this family dynamic, there are rarely I love yous or I want to know how you feel or any compassions toward the kid. It's just not there. These family dynamics, from the parent's perspective, is usually rooted in contempt and disgust. And contempt means the feeling that a person or thing is worthless or beneath consideration. There is a nastiness that the parent emits onto the children because they are mentally ill, and there's a lack of acknowledgement of that, or they just really hate themselves, so everyone must suffer. An example is, you're bullied at school and your parents say, what do you want me to do about that? Or they may say that they regret having you, that you're a burden. They're just being so nasty and evil towards you that the kid just doesn't even understand what they did wrong. Vulnerability is made fun of, may gossip to belittle a person for being vulnerable in the first place. If you are vulnerable or in trouble or in a bad position, it may come as entertainment for them. There's a sadistic enjoyment that they get when someone is failing or needs help. It's like, of course you can't do life without me. Or not really. It's more like, because they can't do good themselves, they don't want to see you do good. Or at least they don't want to see you do better than them. Parents in this dynamic are very hands-off and narcissistic when it comes to raising their children. It's a very, very sick message that these type of parents are giving to their kids. It's basically saying, if I'm miserable, you're gonna be miserable too. Because I didn't want to be here, even though it was their actions that brought them there. But it's like, I don't want to be here, so you're gonna suffer with me. And if nothing outside of life is making you suffer, I'm going to make you suffer in the house. Do the extensive chores. Maybe the parents might even make you take care of them and do stuff for them, whereas traditionally it would be the parents' role to do that thing. Children who grow up in this heartbreak can either become cold themselves or become painfully sensitive because the attack was so personal. So they'll either shut down completely and say, okay, emotions are something that I shouldn't be feeling, and they'll start to feel guilty for that, or everything will become so heightened and they'll feel everything and how other people feel. They'll become such a big empath. They've always had to understand what the other parent's emotion is, so they knew how to maneuver around them. The kids will need to work on the portrayal of love and responsibility, holding the parents accountable for not doing anything to deal with their toxic self. And I will say this a lot throughout the video, holding parents accountable. You can't make someone realize that they did bad or make them acknowledge that they did bad. When I say kids have to hold their parents accountable, it's about doing it for yourself. Taking that weight that you put on yourself and putting it on the parents and saying, you know what, this was a them issue, this is not a me issue. That's very hard to do because for majority of your life you were told you were the problem, you were the issue, when in fact they had their own issue. So anytime I say accountability, it's definitely about putting that responsibility of their lack of and understanding that you are your own individual now, and you have to heal that inner child that's wounded by your parents' lack of decision making. Kids will have to learn what love is for themselves and retrain their conditioned mind that tell them they are unlovable. Number 4, the chaos dynamic. In this dynamic, there's multiple ways it could play out. The first one is parents getting divorced, then back together. So it's like an on again, off again, on again, off again, and there's no explanation to the kids. It's just mom or dad keeps coming in and out of their lives and they don't know why. Number 2 is severe poverty, survival mode. So this, just to put it in brief description, it could be not meeting basic needs, food, clothes, health, so doctor visits, medication, acknowledgement of mental health. The kids are basically just surviving. It's like, I don't know if I'm gonna get my next meal, or maybe I don't know if it's gonna be prepped for me, so I gotta go do it myself, or I don't know if I have clothes that will fit me. I'm scared to ask for clothes because I have clothes that I've been wearing for the past 3 years and they refuse to buy new clothes, stuff like that. Number 3, multiple affairs. So parents that cheat and continue to stay together, or single parent that cheats and the other person stays but the other person chronically cheats. 4, high drama between the parents. It's always yelling, always arguing, things are getting thrown around, maybe hands are being thrown, you never know. I'm not laughing because it's funny, I am laughing because that's how some of us deal with trauma. Okay. In this family dynamic, there's a lot of broken promises and empty words. So they'll say things just to say things, or they'll say things just to shut you up. There's no actual intent on delivering, and they may even get a kind of sadistic enjoyment out of that. They know the truth that they're not gonna do anything about it, but seeing you be excited and then disappointed after might do something for them. The family usually ends up adapting to the very high-paced movement of everything because there's no really acknowledgement of feelings or anything. Everything is just going. So they start to think that's what's normal and that's how families are. So there could be a total loss of basics for the children, like I stated earlier, in the poverty and survival mode. There could be a loss of things such as clean laundry, stable schooling, stable food, basic needs. Children are almost regarded to as pets. Once food and shelter are met, that's all that is given. So it's like, you have food, you have shelter, don't ask me for anything else. That's all you're getting. These kids will struggle with shame and will get their needs met elsewhere. That might be school, with like having better relationships with their teachers or with their friends and their friends' families. Disassociation is very common with kids. The kids are taught to move from one thing to another, so there's no emotional regulation taught, so they just kind of shut off. And isolation could be also a big part of this, staying in their room, watching TV shows to escape reality and feel like they're a part of something else. Also, kids Kids become fiercely independent due to the shame of being raised up like this, which is an attempt to protect themselves. So some kids will say, okay, because you're not taking care of me, I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to figure this out for myself, which is really sad because then they kind of have to go through the grief of, I don't have a mother and I don't have a father. They have to mourn that, and that's something that definitely it's better to work through in therapy because grief is a very heavy emotion. And a lot of us think that grief only comes when someone passes, but grief is basically loss. You don't have to be dead to lose something. Kids who also grew up like this could become very highly intense about cleanliness, money, lack of something, stability or expectations, or deeply struggle with organizations themselves. So the cleanliness may be because they were raised in an unclean environment, so they feel like they always have to stay clean to be different. Money could be a struggle. There is either a lack of, or there was money, but the parents just weren't providing for their kids. So there was money, but there was no money for the kids. Or there was just no money and yeah, they just struggled. Expectations would be like kids will start to expect more from people that they don't know and will be deeply disappointed when they realize that not everyone will treat them correctly, and that may reflect how they were treated growing up and may cause a lot of anger. For that, they just have to find the right people to be around. That's a hard concept to grasp, that not everyone is meant for you. You have to find your people. And to conclude with this topic, the kids must grieve the lack of consistency and stability, holding your parents accountable for how loose they were with your child's development. So basically them not being a parent. You kind of have to grieve that. Number 5, toxic divorce. Loss in loyalty is a good subtopic. Divorce is good if it's done right. If two parents know this is not a healthy environment that we should raise our kids in, it's better if we're separate so we could focus on raising our kids properly, then divorce can be good. They talk to their kids about what's going to happen. It may be hard at first, but they definitely put effort towards their kids' therapy and understanding everything that's going on. So divorce can be good, but divorce can be bad, and that can be with parent annihilation. So basically the kids are brainwashed by one parent about the other parent due to them being very vindictive or mentally off. So one parent might talk really bad about the other parent and criticize their every move or just cuss them out honestly in front of their kids, and never speaking good things about the other parent. It's always that person is bad, that person is a bad representation of a parent, like just dogging out the other parent to the kids. It's just a big character assassination. Vindictive means having or showing strong or unreasoning desire for revenge. So it's almost out of spite. They hate this person so much for putting them in a position of having kids, so they just attack the character over and over again. Step parents may be introduced, which may introduce favoritism between the kids, treating the stepchildren better than the children that have been brought into the new family dynamic. So basically putting their kids last. Maybe there just wasn't a discussion about the divorce. It's just this big life change that happens and no one really talks about it. So a parent may move out and it's just like, okay, let's go eat out. What's happening next week, you know? The parent may act completely normal and just not acknowledge or answer any questions they may have because they feel shame, or they just don't want to have to deal with the heavy emotions that they know would come from the kids, so they just choose to not acknowledge it at all. Children are often told to choose sides, whether it's blatantly said or indirective through actions of the parent. Kids who come from this will struggle with trust and intimacy and taking sides. Often they will be triggered by conflict, even if it's co-workers, friends, or relationships. They just won't like arguments, or that could look like them getting scared when things get loud, or they just avoid conflict altogether. So they just don't discuss anything. They just run away once there's a problem with friends or in a relationship. They just won't know how to handle it, so they'll just leave. From this family dynamic, children could start to believe that a loving relationship is a lie. So they may try to disprove this by trying to find the right match, but end up letting abusive people in, or they become negligent and abusive themselves. What parents model as a relationship becomes the blueprint for children. They either unlearn this blueprint or they lack the same thing for themselves because it's familiar. So they will either copy their parents or they will know that they have to do better, so they start to do the self-reflection. Number 6, the single parent dynamic. This could turn out okay, but if the parent feels like they've been put in a position that makes them feel stuck, they'll project this onto the kid. Parents will have an inner dialogue basically saying FML. They'll call their kids a burden, you're a mistake, I wish I could start over, resentment, big time. They just feel like they've been fucked over by everyone, even though it was their own actions that put them in that exact place. There may be codependency between the child and the parent, because the parent may treat the child as if they're a friend or a sister instead of being a parent to the child. Kids in these situations become totally selfless and will raise themselves. They may stay quiet and out of the way completely. There may be a lot of step-parents, girlfriends, or boyfriends that come in and out of the kid's life because the parent isn't thinking about the impact that these people may have on the child's upbringing. It's always the parent's need over the child's. Parents may also be extremely limited. This means that because they may lack the knowledge of what to do in a situation of how to raise a kid, or they don't want to learn what they're supposed to do, that the kid is now put in a position where they have to raise themselves and figure out things for themselves because the parent doesn't want to show up for them in that way. You're on your own, kid. Figure it out. That is the message the kid will get. Hey loves, I just realized while I'm editing that my camera cut off, so I'm just gonna continue through audio and hopefully this won't happen again. If you hear humming in the background, that is my air fryer. I'm making dinner right now, so sorry. So kids in the single parent dynamic will struggle with feeling like a burden to everyone. They'll have big people-pleasing tendencies and struggle with holding people accountable. What you have to realize if you come from this type of dynamic is that you didn't ask for that and you didn't ask to be a burden. You have to process the immense feeling of responsibility that shouldn't have been yours to begin with. You were abandoned and left to fend for yourself. That is not your fault. Siblings that are in this family dynamic will either rely on each other to survive, so they'll start taking care of each other, feeding each other, clothing each other, making sure they get to school on time. That's that type of stuff. Or it could be one sibling that becomes parentified and has to take care of their other siblings. That may bring up a dynamic of maybe antagonistic tendencies where the sibling may have a little bit of resentment towards the other siblings, even though it's not the sibling's fault, it's the parents. Number 7, aggressor and codependent. One parent is rageful, violent, and toxic. The other is codependent and does not protect or leave the situation. And by protect, I mean they do not protect the kids. The codependent parent may avoid the issue or they'll try to make things work. For example, if they're being abused, they might not leave if there's kids in the situation, and they may teach the kids how to walk around eggshells around the aggressor. Kids may end up taking care of the codependent, and the parent may allow that caretaking to happen. The aggressor usually holds things hostage, like money, job, house. So they control how the money is spent. They may also control if the other parent is allowed to get a job, and they may also control the ins and out of the house and what's allowed to happen and what's not allowed to happen in the house. And the other parent may not have really a say on anything. These parents are modeling that a relationship is a power struggle or a hostage situation. The kids in this situation will struggle with trust, will hold a lot of rage about accountability, about people not being protective over them. The kids may also not be feeling like they are heard or protected, and this will enrage them or have a type of rage towards their parents. parents that they may not know themselves. So for the aggressor and codependent roles, these can switch between codependent and aggressor if both parents are volatile. Couples that struggle with mental health problems can be codependent with each other. Or this could play out where the parents may be divorced or in the process of a divorce, but they're struggling to let go of each other, whether that be signing the papers, or maybe they put obligations on the other parent so they can still be within the vicinity of the other parents. So it's you have to drop off the kids to basketball practice, or you need to pay for this tuition, or they'll place commitments onto the other parent so that they can still kind of have them in their life. Or they both will start making excuses for each other and validate or defend the other's actions, even if they were both in the wrong. So that's the end of this podcast. It was a very heavy loaded discussion. Definitely, if you feel like one of these toxic family dynamics are reflecting something in your life, you should really take the time to analyze and reflect how those dynamics have affected you and how maybe they're showing up in your life. And I really, really strongly recommend therapy, because a lot of these issues are very hard to deal with on your own, and trying to come to an understanding of them is hard when you're so clouded and conditioned one way. You may not validate yourself in the correct way, or you may make excuses for your parents, and that's not okay. You were a victim in this situation, and the thing is, you can't stay a victim forever. A lot of people tend to be oh, well, I was raised poorly, so I'm allowed to have addictions, or I'm allowed to choose crappy people to be in my life, and you'll validate those actions and stuff because you refuse to sit in the discomfort and learn to reflect because you don't want to grow in that way. Or maybe you do want to grow, but you just don't want to be uncomfortable. A lot of this is going to be uncomfortable. So if you got this far, pat yourself on the back, because it's very hard to hear these type of stuff. You guys are going to do amazing, and thank you for listening this far. If you have, leave a comment so I know what your thoughts are, or if you have any opinions or any thoughts, just leave it down there so I know. And I shall see you guys next Monday. Thank you for listening. Love you lots. Bye.